The rain started just before sunset, the kind that fell gently but made everything feel heavier. Mark Sullivan stood near the living room window of his Portland home, watching the streetlights blur through the glass. It was his birthday, but the house felt unusually quiet. No music, no laughter. Just the soft sound of rain and the ticking clock on the wall. He turned 42 that evening. He told himself birthdays didn't matter anymore. Yet something inside him felt uneasy, like he was waiting for news he wasn't ready to hear. Behind him, Emily moved through the house with careful steps. She had changed twice already, not because she wanted to look perfect, but because she couldn't calm her nerves. For weeks, she had planned this night, knowing it would change everything. She loved Mark deeply, but love alone had not been enough to save them from drifting apart. Their marriage had not been broken by one big fight. It had slowly worn down, long workdays, short conversations, missed chances to connect. Emily often felt like she was living with a man who was physically present but emotionally far away. Mark used to notice her. Now, he barely looked up from his phone. "Dinner will be ready soon," Emily said softly. Mark nodded without turning. "Smells good, thanks." The words were polite, empty. Emily felt the familiar ache in her chest. She had heard that tone too many times. They ate together at the dining table, candles lit between them. Mark smiled, thanked her for the meal, and talked briefly about work. Emily listened, but her mind was racing. This was the moment she had been preparing for, and fear sat heavy in her stomach. After dinner, Emily stood and walked toward the small shelf near the wall. She picked up a neatly wrapped box and took a deep breath. "I have something for you," she said. Mark looked surprised. "You already did enough tonight. This one is important," she replied. She handed him the box. It was light. He turned it over, confused, then slowly unwrapped it. Inside was a folded letter, handwritten. "With his name on the front, a letter?" he asked, trying to smile. "Yes," Emily said. "Please read it." Mark hesitated, then opened it. As his eyes moved across the page, his expression changed. The room felt smaller, quieter. Emily had written carefully, choosing words that were honest but gentle. She wrote about how lonely she had felt sitting next to him on the couch, how conversations had become short and distant. She wrote about trying to reconnect, about nights she cried quietly so he wouldn't hear. Mark's hands tightened slightly as he read. Then the letter shifted. Emily wrote about meeting someone at work, a man who noticed when she was tired, who asked how her day was and waited for the answer. Someone who listened when she talked, about feeling unseen in her marriage. She did not write anything graphic. She did not need to. The emotional connection was clear, and that truth was enough to shake him. Mark looked up, his voice low. "Why are you telling me this now?" Emily met his eyes, tears already there. "Because it's your birthday. And because I couldn't keep lying. I didn't want another year built on silence." "Did you betray me?" he asked. "I betrayed us by not speaking sooner," she said. "And by letting my heart lean somewhere else." The words hit him hard. Mark felt anger rise, but it quickly mixed with shame. He remembered the nights he stayed late at the office without calling. The times Emily tried to talk and he brushed her off, saying he was tired. "Did you love him?" he asked. Emily paused. "I loved feeling heard. I loved feeling like I mattered." Mark stood up suddenly, pushing his chair back. "I need to leave," he said. "I can't think here." Emily didn't stop him. She watched as he grabbed his jacket and walked out into the rain. The door closed and the sound echoed through the house. Emily sank into the chair, her hands shaking. She had feared this moment, but she also felt relief. The truth was finally out. Whatever happened next would be real. Mark drove through empty streets, the rain streaking across his windshield. His mind replayed the letter over and over. He wanted to blame Emily, but deep down, he knew he had played A role. He had been loyal in action, but careless with her heart. He remembered how Emily used to laugh when he came home early, how she once waited up just to talk. When had he stopped noticing? Hours passed before he returned. The rain had slowed, and the house was dark except for one light still on. Emily was sitting on the couch waiting. "I didn't know if you'd come back," she said quietly. "I wasn't sure either," Mark replied. They sat across from each other, the letter resting between them on the table like a fragile bridge. "I didn't give you that letter to hurt you," Emily said. "I gave it because I didn't want to lose myself anymore." Mark nodded slowly. "I didn't realize how far we drifted." Silence followed, but this time it felt different. It wasn't empty. It was full of things finally being understood. Mark looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in a long while. "This birthday," he said, "isn't what I expected." Emily managed a small, sad smile. It wasn't easy to give. Outside, the rain stopped completely. Inside, two people sat facing the truth, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. The house felt different after midnight, quieter but more honest. "I didn't see how alone you were." Emily listened, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "I should have spoken louder," she replied. "I should have told you I was breaking instead of finding comfort in someone else's attention." Mark looked up. Was it serious? Emily shook her head. It never crossed into something physical. But emotionally, it mattered. And that scared me. The honesty hurt, but it also cleared the air. Mark leaned back, breathing deeply. He felt anger, but it was mixed with regret. He realized how close he had come to losing the life he once took for granted. "I drove around for hours," Mark said. "But all I could think about was how I stopped showing up." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't want another man." Away she didn't. Her fingers trembled as they touched his. "But I can be honest now." Mark nodded. "So can I." They talked without rushing. Mark talked about work consuming him, about the fear of failing that made him shut down. Emily talked about feeling unwanted, about how silence hurt more than arguments. For the first time in years, neither of them tried to win the conversation. Emily took a moment before answering, "We choose." Mark felt the weight of that choice. Leaving would be simpler in some ways. Trying meant effort, humility, and risk. "I don't want to walk away," he said, "but I don't want to promise things I won't keep." Emily nodded. "I don't want empty promises. I want change." They agreed to take real steps. Counseling. Time set aside for each other. Honest conversations, even when they were uncomfortable. They both knew words alone would not fix everything. Mark stood and walked to the window. The rain had stopped and the street was quiet. "I've spent years running from hard moments," he said. "Tonight forced me to stop." Emily joined him. "I was afraid of telling the truth," she said, "but hiding it was destroying me." They stood together, not touching, but close. The distance between them felt smaller than it had in years. Later, they sat again, calmer now. Mark picked up the letter and folded it carefully. "This hurt," he said honestly. "But it also woke me up." Emily wiped her eyes. "I didn't. But I don't hate you." That admission changed everything. It didn't erase the pain, but it made room for hope. They talked about trust, how it had been damaged on both sides. Emily admitted she would end contact with a coworker completely. Not because Mark demanded it, but because she wanted to protect whatever future they might still have. Mark admitted he needed to show love, not assume it was understood. "We won't fix this in one night," Emily said. "I know," Mark replied. "But we started." They didn't celebrate his birthday with gifts or laughter. When they finally stood to go upstairs, there was no grand gesture, no dramatic moment. Just a quiet understanding that something had shifted. Mark paused at the stairs. "Thank you for telling me the truth," he said. Emily nodded. "Thank you for coming back." They went to bed that night without pretending everything was fine, but they also didn't turn away from each other. Outside, the clouds slowly parted and the night grew still. Not for candles or cake, but for the moment two people chose honesty over comfort and effort over silence.